In Dungeons & Dragons, the most common fantasy setting is Faerun, which is a continent in the world of Toril. Now, there are other settings in Dungeons & Dragons, Greyhawk, Dragonlance, several settings from Magic the Gathering, Strixhaven, and Theros. But today we're going to focus on Faerun and what you as a DM or player new to the world, at the very minimum, needs to know. For starters, Faerun, as mentioned, is a continent in the world of Toril, and Toril is the third planet from the sun, just like Earth. Now, looking at Toril, it's kind of modeled after the Earth. Faerun takes the place of Europe, and then you have additional continents representing North and South America, Asia, Africa, very large Australia. But most of the places you've heard of from Dungeons & Dragons lore are in Faerun, and more specifically along the Sword Coast. Places like Waterdeep, Neverwinter, Baldur's Gate. Understanding the basics of the timeline in the world of Toril is essential, as it's how most of the adventure modules reference things. The timeline often references DR, which, kind of like in the real world, BCE, before Common Era, and AD, DR stands for the Dale Reckoning. It's a way to measure years and events in this fantasy world. The Dale Reckoning, or DR, is a unique way of keeping track of years in the fantasy realm of the Forgotten Realms. It all began when humans and elves from the Dale Lands region came together to form a powerful alliance. In one DR, a special monument called the Standing Stone was created. In general, the residents of Faerun at this time believed this alliance was so important that they decided to start counting years from that moment. When you see DR in Dungeons & Dragons stories, it's simply a way to let you know what year it is in the Forgotten Realms. So bearing that in mind, the first thing you might want to decide as a DM or even a player is, when does the adventure take place? When is your character alive in terms of this history? Now, different editions, campaigns, and adventures in Dungeons & Dragons take place in various eras of Faerun's history. Just to kind of focus in on 5th edition, 5th edition takes place between 1486 DR to approximately 1500 DR. Now, if you're familiar with Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate 3 takes place in 1492 DR, which should be an easy date to remember because that's a significant date in our own history. So the various 5e modules have different years associated with them. As I said previously, all within 5e fall between 1486 and 1500 DR. Specifically, you have the first module, Out of the Abyss, which takes place in 1486. The Waterdeep adventures, Dragon Heist and Mad Mage, both also took place in 1492 DR. And then you have Acquisitions Inc. down here at 1496. Now, something else you may have heard of in Dungeons & Dragons lore for 5th edition is the Second Sundering. We'll save the details for a future video, but in 1487 DR, it was a profound event where magical and divine upheaval reshaped certain elements in the world itself. Certain deities from the Forgotten Realms pantheon returned to the universe. The magical fabric of the world, known as the Weave, was also affected. The Second Sundering caused changes in the way magic worked, with spells and magical effects sometimes behaving very differently. Now, for you as an adventurer, you may be aware of some of these crazy occurrences, but most likely don't know the specifics. Let's just say 1487 DR in the Forgotten Realms was a lot like 2020 in our timeline. More specifically, a lot of people view this as the start of 5th edition. So this is kind of what changes the rules moving from 4th edition to 5th edition. So if you're playing D&D 5th edition, you most likely want to start sometime after 1487 DR. You could do this by picking a specific module or adventure, or just picking an area in Faerun and making it your own. Larger cities such as Waterdeep, Baldur's Gate, and Neverwinter make great starting locations. All have their unique cultures, customs, and political landscapes and would make great starting places. If you're interested in any one of those in particular, please comment down below. Would love to do a future video on one of those cities. One of the difficulties in starting in one of those cities is you do have to know something about the cities, the culture, the political affiliations. Is there an archduke? Is there a council? That sort of thing. So if you're not using a prepackaged adventure or module, my advice to a player creating a character is to create somebody from a rural area and make up a village. That way you control the culture, the setting, their background, where they came from, where they grew up, and then have them travel to the area of the larger adventure. If it's, in a city like Waterdeep or something like that. As a dungeon master, what I like to do for a starting location is down near the Moonshae Isles is a little island called Mintarn. And what's cool about Mintarn is it's kind of a hub for pirates, privateers, ships, etc. And it always remains neutral. As a DM, this allows you to bring together whatever characters players come up with. You can be a wizard from Waterdeep, or you can be an elven druid from the Moonshae Isles and still somehow have wound up in Mintarn. In general, Mintarn has a lot of inns and taverns, makes it perfect for a group of characters to meet in a tavern together. And really, the only thing that you need to know is they have a specialty green wine there, which is not named. This is from the Sword Coast Adventurers Handbook. Additionally, Mintarn is known to change rulers every 3 years, and they're called a ruling tyrant. So it's just kind of like it changes governments, usually like a pirate captain or something like that every few years, making it real easy to change however the DM would like to set things up. So for those of you new players and DMs out there to Dungeons & Dragons, I hope this video helped give you a basic background to the fantasy world of Toril and Faerun. For anyone new or old to Dungeons & Dragons watching, please let me know what your favorite locations are in Faerun as either a player or DM, what adventure modules you like to play or run, and maybe even what your favorite time frame within D&D is. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.